Okay, for now, it looks like TSA workers might get paid next week after President Trump once again went around Congress. He signed a memo today to unilaterally pay them as the stalemate on Capitol Hill drags on. Now, the Department of Homeland Security says TSA employees could get paychecks as soon as Monday. But the big question is how. The actual memo says, quote, I hereby direct the Secretary of Homeland Security in coordination with the director of the OMB to use funds that have a reasonable and logical nexus to TSA operations to provide TSA employees with the compensation and benefits that would have accrued to them if not for the Democrat-led DHS shutdown. Okay, but no one has actually said where these funds supposedly exist or where that money is coming from, let alone how are they going to get the direct deposit. Meanwhile, in Congress, the branch of our government that, actually has the constitutional power of the purse, Republicans and Democrats in the Senate had a deal that would have funded all of DHS except for immigration and border enforcement, and it passed unanimously. But in the House, Speaker Mike Johnson rejected that deal, calling it a joke. He also accused Democrats of taking funding negotiations hostage. So instead, the House is set to send an 8-week stopgap bill to fund all of DHS to the Senate, where Chuck Schumer says it's dead on arrival. Let's get a live look at the House floor. They are voting on the stopgap plan right now. The nightcap is still here. Peter. Okay, Peter. First of all, I don't know why they are voting on this thing. The Senate took a long time to get to where they arrived last night. And the idea that they're all of a sudden going to be somewhere different when they've literally left town is, I don't know. But this feels like it's going very differently than past stalemates, okay? Yeah. I wrote a piece about this today. I'm going to just quote myself. I have the privilege here. I wrote that the Republicans' entire strategy was to create pressure, assign blame, wait for Democrats to fold, and it has worked in the past. This time it didn't. So Democrats can actually say this is a win because in the Senate, at least, they did not cave to the pressure. There was a deal on the table where they wouldn't have gotten any of the reforms they asked for. But it could have looked like a win, but they didn't take it. So a little credit, but what is going on?
No, it's fascinating that in Washington it looks like a win because every Democrat stuck together, and that's not
the bar is low.
The normal
Peter.
thing, right? Exactly. It did not, though, however, result in the reforms that they said that they wanted to have in the first place. So the deal that they accepted would still have allowed ICE to do all the things everybody objected to, and the Republicans would have to find a way to fund it through what they call reconciliation without a filibuster. Now, of course, the House has blown it up, and we don't know where it's going to go. And in the end, we're here a month, 6 weeks into this stalemate. And what's amazing is until the last couple of days, nobody even seemed to be taking it very seriously as if it was a crisis. Government isn't working. And it's like if you were at home and you didn't pay your bills because you were just mad at your spouse about the way you were going about, household chores, the companies that you weren't paying would be saying, I don't give a crap. You have an obligation to pay. And here we are in Washington. We don't even treat this as a crisis anymore.
Kevin, again, that Senate bill, the House Republicans have said, we're not doing that. We're going to do our own thing. It would have funded the other parts of DHS. I'm talking, yes, TSA, but also the Coast Guard, FEMA. I'm from Nebraska, Tornado Alley. It is tornado season right now in this country, and people do need the FEMA funds. But they rejected that. And, to be very clear, ICE still has all this money from the One Big Beautiful Bill. So it really doesn't make a difference. This is not hampering ICE's ability to, do their thing. So break down for us how important, and, I know you know this, Dan, how important DHS actually is. Are we unsafe right now? More so, put the war aside. Are we more unsafe because they're not funding DHS?
Why do I get the war?
I know, right?
Look. Anybody who claims a win today, shame. Shame on Capitol Hill, right? I'm a guy. I covered security forces, the military, law enforcement, intelligence services. So few things drive me nuts as much as when I see politicians using people as pawns and using law enforcement, security force people as pawns. These are the guys that put their lives on the lines, the men and the women who take these government jobs and raise their right hands and do things as either whether it's getting us through the airport or getting bad guys out of the country, or preparing for all the things you just talked about, those disaster contingencies. So, yeah, I used to cover the Pentagon, and long ago we were on a trip to Iraq with Bob Gates when he was the SecDef, and there was a looming government shutdown. And we asked him, are you worried that the troops aren't going to get paid that while we're in the middle of an actual big war back then? And his reply to it was something to the effect of, I always think that it's wisest that we pay the guys with the guns. right? Like, how do you make them a part of this? And it's almost like not understanding the impact of bombing Iran, that it's going to close the Straits of Hormuz. How do you not know that putting TSA on the line is going to end in a crisis like this? That's just going to piss off everybody trying to go to the airports. By the way, I wasn't supposed to be here today. I was supposed to be in Florida. It's supposed to be spring break, but we canceled our trips in part because of this, because of the chaos at the airport and the prices of everything going on. I said, I'm not going to deal with this right now.
I mean, it's a lot. And I mean, okay, so what we're talking about here is the real life impact of these policy decisions. We see the long lines at the airports. I mean, look, I'm happy you're here, but I'm sad you're not on spring break.
I'm thrilled to be here. And I'm dancing to come in, and he's going to make it all better, right?
Well, the airports are a mess right now. And so the question is, how do Democrats effectively sell this fight to voters? Because right now, there's all this sound when people go into the airports and they're saying Congress needs to get it together. Some people who I think are very plugged in are saying, this is Republicans. But for the most part, people are saying, this is Congress not working again.
You make very clear what Trump's America is. Trump's America, it's like two boarding lanes. One is for him and his cronies, and the other is for you. Private jet bookings are up 39% since this whole mess started. And by the way, because of the big, beautiful bill, you can write off that private jet now. You wait in line for 4.5 hours.
Good to know. Would you say you can wrap that up?
Get us the jet.
You're waiting 4.5 hours in line now, but cabinet members can just circumvent the line and go straight in.
Simone's the only one at this table who can afford a private.
That's right. But as you're saying, that the TSA workers are unpaid, but the cabinet members haven't missed a paycheck. It's like Marie Antoinette in the sky. Let them fly private.
Well, I mean, John, Congress already had bad approval numbers. Nobody likes the government with the American people. And then this
the sad reality is this Republican Party is not capable of governing effectively.
Well,
capable of running the executive branch effectively, and they're not capable of running the legislature effectively.
Won't this just cause this current kerfuffle, if you will, just cause lasting damage? Like, if people didn't have confidence before, if people were maybe thinking, Republicans don't seem to know what they're doing with the government, we're not getting any of the things they told us we would get if we voted for Donald Trump, and we did these things, put them back in power. We're in a midterm election year, and I know there are real people's lives and things at stake, but to be very clear, elections are a big part about how change comes about in this country. The legislative branch is very important, and so the people who are in charge of the legislative branch, they matter, and what they are willing and not willing to do makes a difference in the lives of people all over this country.
I don't think anything that the Trump administration or that the Republican Congress is doing right now is helping the Republican Party. But I'm not sure they're capable of acting differently. Maybe Mike Johnson just can't get the Senate package, which was passed with unanimous consent, through the House. You normally think of the House as something that the majority party can basically do whatever they want. And if the leadership of the other chamber and if the president wants it solved, they can do it. But they may not be able to get the votes to do it. It's just too chaotic of a party. You have too many extremes within the party that can't reconcile their priorities. It's not a pretty picture.
But don't they want the chaos? I mean, Peter, I always feel they live off of that. They promised it to the American people. They promised they would break these systems. That's what DOGE was all about. They cut half the government last year. They just slice.
Well, but people believed in the DOGE because they thought it would.
They keep selling that.
It would
promise.
bring them some relief.
Iran was the same thing. It's like we'll break it first and we'll fix it later. And trust us, this is what we're going to do.
Well,
I think there's still a part of the party, I think, or the MAGA movement,
if they think that's a good message, I think they should go with it.
Well, I'll tell you that. It's an interesting question.
I'm not defending it. I'm just saying I think that's what the plan is. The plan. Chaos is the plan.
Table because, Peter, no kings is tomorrow. Tomorrow, all across this country, it is projected that millions, upwards of, what are the numbers that the folks are saying? Upwards of 9 million, maybe even 12 million people will come out various spaces and places all over this country at these rallies to literally make their voices heard about the chaos that Kevin is talking about. We had the president of AFSCME on our show earlier today, and he said he represents the largest union of public sector workers, and a lot of them are upset about the chaos. They're concerned about their health care, things that maybe we're not talking about in the news as much right about now because of the war, but these are on, this is on the front line for people out there. So. Is the chaos helping? I don't know. 12 million people in the No Kings is like, I don't know.
I'll believe it when I see it.
It's one thing for voters to say, look, we want you to go into Washington and break some china. It's another thing if you want to sit down to dinner and you don't have anything to eat on, right? You don't have any china to put your food on. And I think the consequences of disruption are now at play here. And the question is whether Democrats can say it's all Trump's fault, you don't like what's happening here, he promised you this and he can't deliver. Trump is gambling on the idea that the Iraq war will be over sometime in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, and people will have forgotten about it by then. The gas prices will come back down, everything will settle down, that all of the mishigas right now will be over by then, and people will be more appreciative of his leadership. But the moment he hasn't offered them what they thought they were voting for. He promised three main things. Stop immigration. He's succeeded in closing the border, let's say. Bring prices down. Obviously, they're going up. And no new wars. Obviously, we're in a big new war. So how is he going to play that in the fall?
And people can see the connection between the actions that he's taken and his failure to deliver on those priorities. Prices are going up because of the tariffs and now because of the war in Iran. That is not a difficult case for Democrats to make.
Well, the question is, what will people do at the ballot box? And we have to wait a couple months to see.